From the land-grant University in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois, this is the Closing Market Report. It is the 24th day of February 2023. I'm Extension's Todd Gleason. Coming up, we'll talk about the commodity markets with Naomi Blohm. She's at TotalFarmMarketing.com out of West Bend, Wisconsin. We'll hear a couple of items from the United States Department of Agriculture, one of them related to trade and the negotiations that are taking place across the planet, and how USTR, that's the United States Trade Representative's Office, is handling them. And then we'll turn our attention to plant pathology with a plant pathologist out of Oregon who has been working on a really fast-paced and command line or computer-oriented way to figure out exactly what a disease is and the DNA behind it. We'll do all of that before we talk with Don Day. He's at Day Weather in Cheyenne, Wyoming, who will give us an update on the forecast over the next 5 to 10 days and take a look at the transition from La Nina to El Nino, all on this Tuesday edition of the Closing Market Report from Illinois Public Media. It is public radio for the farming world, online, on demand at willag.org, where today you can pick up your tickets for the All-Day Ag Outlook. It's just a week away. That's right. Only 1 week from today, we'll be at the Beef House in Covington, Indiana. We sure hope you'll join us. You need to pick that ticket up right now. You can do so on our website at willag.org, willag.org. The cost is just $40. That includes the morning cinnamon roll and coffee, the noon hour meal from the Beef House, the farmdoc team, including Gary Schnicke, talking about crop insurance. Joe Jansen will be there to lay out the fundamentals of the marketplace. Joanna Calusi, who's now at Purdue, will be back to talk about competition from South America, Brazil in particular. She's written an article that's up on the FarmDoc Daily website that outlines some of that. You'll want to take a look at that as well. We'll also hear during the day from our regular bevy of analysts that you hear either on the opening or closing market reports from Illinois Public Media. It's a fantastic day, and it'll kick off with Eric Snodgrass and his look at the weather forecast, too, from Nutrient Ag Solutions. We'll do it next week, but you need to be at the Beef House to find out all those details. Go to our willag.org page and purchase your ticket right now.
Todd Gleason services are made available to WILL by University of Illinois Extension.
March corn for the day settled at $4.27 3/4, up 1/4 cent. The May 4.38 1/2, 1 3/4 lower. And December corn settled at $4.63 3/4 cent. That was down 3/4 cent for the afternoon. March beans at $11.39 1/2, up 5 1/4. The May 11.55 1/4, 5 1/2 cents higher. And November soybeans, $11.21 1/4, up 4 cents. Bean meal futures, $2 higher. Bean oil up 64 cents. Wheat futures in the March contract at 5.67 1/2, down 2, and the hard red at 5.54 1/4, down 5 3/4 cent on the afternoon. Live cattle futures in Chicago at $239.10, down 15 cents. Feeder cattle 362.20, up 85 cents, and lean hogs at $95.80 per 100 pounds. The settlement price there up $2.10. Crude oil $65.63 a barrel, down 68 cents. Diesel fuel just about unchanged at $2.51, and natural gas for the day at $2.83 is down 9 cents on the afternoon. The Dow Jones Industrial Average around 392 points higher, and the S&P up 46 points. Naomi Blohm from TotalFarmMarketing.com now joins us not from West Bend, Wisconsin, but you are in San Antonio, Texas at Commodity Classic today?
Yes, I am. So the show officially gets going tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, but we're getting all set up today, and there are a lot of folks coming into town. Definitely a big group of people expected, and always just a neat experience to gather with other folks in the industry and farmers just to all be able to share ideas and come together in one spot. It's pretty fantastic.
All right. Well, I will look forward to talking to you in the future to see what the folks there had to say about the commodity markets. However, I'm interested today in what you have to say about the trade over the last week or so particularly Monday and Tuesday, given the Supreme Court's decision on Friday of last week and the president's move to use Section 122 to impose apparently a 10% across the board tariff on incoming products and what that meant, if anything, to the agricultural markets.
Yeah, I think initially it just created a little bit of confusion, but when the dust settled, here's my understanding of it. So by eliminating the tariffs from the Supreme Court, but now President Trump's saying he's adding new 15% global tariffs. So what it means for China, and I think that's the one that we're all the most kind of excited and curious about. My understanding is that now the tariff rate for China is actually going to be reduced from 32% to 24% when all is said and done. So there's still some potential room maybe for future negotiations as President Trump goes to China in April. But the marketplace today, just kind of trading in a sideways pattern here for the short term. Corn, soybeans, and wheat, Monday, Tuesday, all tested some resistance areas on daily charts. If we don't get any specific new friendly news to get through those resistance areas, we could see a little bit of a pullback, I think, as we head into the end of the week. Now, we're also needing to pay attention to the president's conversation tonight on national television, his State of the Union address. There's a lot of curiosity in there if he's going to address the tariffs, if he's going to address high food prices, if he's going to address anything on the cattle side with high beef prices. So pay attention to that tonight. And then Thursday is the next round of U.S. and Iran conversations. And we'll see if there's anything that comes to that as well.
So there is a fleet that has been moved into position. Actually, I believe there are two now in that area. I'm wondering how much of an impact that might have on the marketplace. I suppose it depends a lot on how things go on Thursday. But when you think about it, do producers need to protect themselves in some way, or is this just another of an issue that producers will have to ride out?
Yeah, so watching the conversation with U.S. and Iran, and if there's not anything that really comes to a positive decision, if President Trump moves to become more aggressive with military action in the region, my guess is that would send crude oil prices screaming higher, which in turn could take the corn prices higher with it. We could see more short covering from funds exiting, still short positions on corn, still short positions on wheat, just to kind of move to the sidelines. A further short covering could make the market move a little bit higher. But as far as any big significant rally from there, it would have to be dependent, I think, primarily on specific aggressive military action, and that we may not know for a couple of weeks yet.
The other thing I want to ask you about is acreage figures that you are dealing with out of your home office, and where they stand and how they compare to what USDA put forth in its Ag Outlook Forum.
Yeah, so at the Outlook Forum, the USDA, saying there's going to be 3.8 million more acres of soybeans to be planted this year, closer to 85 million acres. And then, of course, on the corn side, they're looking for a reduction of acres down to 94 million, which would be about 4.8 million acres less than this year. So from client conversations that I've had, a lot of people still saying primarily sticking more with the regular rotation type of thing. And I do feel like corn acres will be down some from last year, just naturally, and soybean acres to be a little bit higher as well. So where it all actually comes into play, that'll be, definitely more transparent once we get to the March 31st acreage report for sure. But with the spring pricing that we have now, when you look at the crop insurance price, like November beans are near 11.04, which is above last year's number of 10.54 for the spring price. So, maybe does that encourage some more soybean acres and potentially some of those fringe acres, or in other states, maybe like in the South, where cotton prices haven't been as attractive. So I do agree with the USDA Outlook Forum sentiment. of more soybean acres than last year, less corn acres than last year. But as far as a specific number, I'll wait and see what the USDA has to say on March 31st.
Anything else you've been watching that we have not discussed for the day?
Well, keep an eye on that cattle market. That and maybe is in peril just from a technical standpoint. So we know that the cattle feed report had been supportive in general, but we're still keeping an eye on Greeley, Colorado, if they're going to have a strike there potentially or not. Again, if President Trump, does he make any mention of high beef prices in the State of the Union address tonight? Those are always those little hiccups or nuances that could create a little bit of a ripple effect for market prices the following day. So plenty of things to be keeping an eye on.
Thank you much, Naomi.
Thank you.
That's Naomi Blohm. She is with TotalFarmMarketing.com. You're listening to the Closing Market Report from Illinois Public Media. Our theme music is written, performed, produced, and courtesy of Logan County, Illinois farmer Tim Gleason. Do not forget today to visit our website. The address is willag.org. That's WILLAG.org. Why? Because, well, 1 week from today, we'll be at the Beef House in Covington, Indiana, for the annual All-Day Ag Outlook, and we hope you'll join us. It's a great day. Tickets are on sale. They cost just $40 through Friday of this week, and next Tuesday you can join us for the Beef House meal, the cinnamon rolls and coffee in the morning, and of course the FarmDoc team and many of the analysts that you hear on WILL AM 580 willag.org each and every business day of the year. We'll cover all kinds of topics. The full agenda is online, but the important part is that you join us. Don't wait. Go to the website right now, willag.org, and order your tickets today. Now up next, a little something from USDA. The dual methods of reciprocal trade agreements and rapid response trade missions, they say, are part of the United States' new efforts to increase agricultural ag exports and in turn to boost the nation's economy. Rod Bain reports.
Agricultural exports. It remains a vital part of the total U.S. economy, with sales projected for 2026 to be at $173 billion with a B dollars. Needless to say, that number could rise by the end of the year if exports increase beyond forecast, like what occurred in 2025. How might that happen? One strategy has a two-pronged approach. The first aspect is reciprocal trade agreements between the U.S. and various markets. As U.S. Trade Representative's Office Chief Agricultural Negotiator Julie Callahan explains, those agreements are leading trading partners to commit to
removing non-tariff barriers and also providing preferential tariff concessions for U.S. agriculture.
So as an example, with the recent RTA between the U.S. and Taiwan,
duty-free access, addressing the beef and pork non-tariff barriers that we at USTR had been tackling for years and years, trying to break down these unnecessary non-tariff barriers that were preventing us from fully accessing their market.
And in the case of all reciprocal trade agreements, those also include
commitments to not limit market access when specialty cheese manufacturers want to export cheeses that are protected by EU geographical indications.
The issue of European Union geographical indicators for cheese and other food products has long been a challenge for our nation and other competitors, as it has been used as a tool to limit market access in some cases. The chief ag negotiator says with the framework of these new trade deals,
every trading partner, we want them to commit to allowing our dairy producers to have full market access.
The second part of strategy to boost U.S. ag exports is what is known as rapid response trade missions. As Agriculture Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Agricultural Affairs Luke Lindberg notes, these differ from the traditional ag trade model, in that these are visits by USDA officials and, more importantly, ag producers and agribusinesses almost immediately after reciprocal trade agreements are signed.
People in these countries want to meet our farmers, guys with the dirt under their fingernails, who can tell you why their beef is different, or their soybeans are raised slightly better, or whatever that might be. And that's the people they want to talk to. And so we have launched this set of programs where we're bringing over farm groups quickly, in many cases weeks, after these agreements get locked in, to expose our producers to the market and begin to build those buyer-seller relationships.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Let's stay in Washington, D.C. for the moment, and with USDA, have you ever wondered what pathogen is impacting your plants? Data crunching to determine potential threats to plant health now can occur within hours instead of months or even years. That's courtesy of a new open-source platform. Whether you're a plant pathologist, a horticulturalist, a forest manager, maybe a backyard gardener, Nick Grunwald foresees a possible future data source to keep plants healthy and safe.
In 10 years, I foresee a future where we could ask Siri or Alexa, tell me about this pathogen, where is it found?
Grunwald is an agriculture department plant pathologist in Oregon and says that the work he's doing now, along with his colleagues, stems from some automated data pipeline work on a platform called pathogen surveillance.
A bioinformatics pipeline that can analyze genomes of pathogens, basically with minimal intervention from a scientist. So one command line statement and it just runs, analyzes the data and tells you what you have.
This platform, over a decade in the making, addresses significant challenges when it comes to identifying pest and disease that threaten plants, and in turn, developing real-time preventative responses.
It has become very cheap to sequence a pathogen of any strain of pathogens, fungi, oomycetes, bacteria, you name it, even nematodes. But what is really excruciatingly slow is analysis of the data.
Or, put another way, in the realm of pathogen genomic sequencing and determining identification of new variants, Grunwald says what currently takes a graduate student 1 to 3 years to analyze now takes just hours. You may have heard him say earlier, command line statement. Computer talk, of course. That makes sense as the pathogen surveillance platform relies on open source software.
So anybody in the world can use this for the intended purpose of identifying pathogens or pests using whole genome sequences.
To serve as an open data source. To get a better idea of how the pathogen surveillance platform works in real time, Grunwald provides this example.
We were contacted by the California Department of Food and Agriculture that they had a new fungus on a new host, and now they had several samples from other hosts, and they had never seen this before. Soon afterwards, the plant clinic at Oregon State University and the Oregon Department of Forestry identified similar samples here in Oregon. So we sequenced all those roughly 30 isolates and found that they're all the same species. Basically, we sequenced those and put them into our pipeline, and overnight it ran, and by the next morning we had a phylogenetic tree with all 30 samples identified to species,
as well as data such as genetic, regional, and host diversity for pathogens. This program was provided to us by the United States Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. Let's check in on the global growing regions now with Don Day. He's at Day Weather in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Hi, Don. Thanks for being with us. Sometimes we pop around the planet, but I'd like to stay just in the United States today. And I want to talk about a couple of things, but let's begin with just the weather forecast. You can start with that big snowstorm if you want that took place earlier in the week on the East Coast, but give us kind of what this next 5 to 10 days might look like.
Well, when you have a storm of that magnitude, you usually have a little bit of a breather, so to speak, where there won't be a lot going on, and that's really the case here for probably the rest of the work week and into the start of the weekend. For a lot of the central United States, not much going on. There'll be a little bit of snow and colder weather in the northern Great Lakes, and we will see some chilly temperatures move into the northern plains. And some of that coolness will reach the Midwest, but it won't come with much in the way of any significant precipitation. But for folks up in the northern plains, the northern Great Lakes, it's going to be a pretty chilly weekend. Now, once we get into the time frame of early to mid next week, we do start to see the weather pattern get a little bit more busy, and that starts with maybe a little bit of shower activity moving across the Corn Belt Sunday night into Monday of next week. And then we're going to see the Pacific push systems across the west that will travel west to east across the lower 48 as we get into the first couple of weeks of March. And honestly, that's exactly what you'd expect as you go into that month of March. Usually the weather pattern starts to get more active, and it certainly looks like that's what's going to happen.
There will be many that are hoping that those weather patterns carry enough rainfall that deficits, which have piled up across parts of the middle part of the United States, can dissipate. Do you think that will be the case?
Well, I certainly think it'll help, but when we get into these very dry areas, and as you mentioned, there's some extensive dryness in pockets in many areas, you have to treat it like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. But there are signs that the activity we'll see in March will be followed by more in April. So little bites into those dry areas. I'm cautiously optimistic we'll be able to make some nibbles into some of those dry areas as we look at the next 4 to 8 weeks.
How much does that depend on a transition from La Nina to El Nino?
Well, the speed and the timing is certainly what everybody wants to know, and that's probably the most difficult thing to model is the rate of change. There's pretty good agreement in our long-range forecasting modeling that we will see a slow ramp up of the transition taking place here over the next 3 months. And honestly, you want to see a slow transition. You don't want to just all of a sudden jump into a moderately strong El Nino. So what we're seeing right now in the Pacific is the La Nina is gone in all technical aspects of it. And now we're in this neutral phase and should be through the month of March, should be into April and May, which for a lot of the lower 48 would mean fairly typical spring conditions, where you're going to see a lot of averages, temperatures, and precipitation. One little wrinkle I have to throw in is that the northern latitudes still are holding a lot of very cold air. In fact, in Greenland this week, they will get close to 85 to 90 degrees below zero. It hasn't been that cold in Greenland since the early 90s. So that's an indication that there's cold air up there, and as we get warmer in the lower latitudes, as we transition, that could be kind of like gas and matches, which does mean an active pattern. More spring storms are going to be possible.
Hey, thank you much, Don. I really appreciate it. And usually I'd say we'll talk with you again next week, but that's not going to be the case, as we'll be at the All-Day Ag Outlook. So we'll talk with you not next week, but in 2 weeks.
See you then.
Don Day is with Day Weather. He is in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Joined us on this Tuesday edition of the Closing Market Report that comes to you from Illinois Public Media. We are just 1 week away now from the All-Day Ag Outlook. If you've not gotten your tickets, you still have an opportunity. Through Friday, you can pick them up for $40, and that includes the morning cinnamon roll and coffee, the noon hour meal from the Beef House, the farmdoc team throughout the day, along with the analysts that you hear regularly here on Illinois Public Media. Oh, and Aaron Hager will be there to talk about weed science and weeds that you might be battling this spring and summer in your fields. You can sign up now for the All-Day Ag Outlook at the Beef House at willag.org. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason.